Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be talking about severe weather to be continuing across parts of the Great Lakes region and also parts of the Midwest. And this will be eventually be moving slowly to the southeast by each day. So some of these same places will be experiencing severe weather tomorrow and eventually it will finally start to move to the southeast on Friday, which one may bring a severe weather threat across parts of the Ohio Valley, back down across parts of the mid and lower Mississippi valleys as well. We also got tropics to talk about. We got Tropical Storm Fred and also Invest 95L as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the SPC outlook here for today. We do have another enhanced risk for severe weather across northeastern Illinois, southeastern Wisconsin, into what it is pretty much the western half of Michigan. The tornado threat is there, and we do believe that the greatest tornado threat might be somewhere into maybe into southeastern Wisconsin, but they do have that 5% risk that does expand into parts of central Michigan. There's going to be quite a bit of wind shear to work with this setup here, and we do have some wind shear going on out there right now. Plus, there's also a cluster, a nasty one, moving through across northern Illinois, which is definitely something to watch, which I'll show you guys that in a moment. Plus, that 2% doesn't move into parts of southwestern New York State as well. That tornado threat. Damage winds will be there. We do have another hatched area again, and that is for 75 plus mile per hour winds are possible with some of these storms here. We expect a cluster of thunderstorms to form somewhere in the zone in here and probably move to the southeast. And we're not going to be completely sure when this is going to die out as well. There's also a hail threat as well, and there could be potential for some very large hail across parts of east central Wisconsin, as well as some of those pretty strong updrafts as well. Here's day two, which is tomorrow. We got a large margin risk area anywhere from northern Kansas all the way up into Vermont and New Hampshire. The tornado threat will be low end, really anywhere from east central or far eastern Iowa up into parts of Vermont and New Hampshire and New York. Damage winds will be there, and there's also a low end hail threat as well. And then on day three, we got another margin of risk, pretty much for the same areas across the northeast, but further to the southwest, it does shift to further to the south, which it does include places like the really anywhere from the Ozarks for the Ohio Valley up into the northeast. Let's go ahead and check out the environment right now. We do have a cluster of thunderstorms in progress here, in which I think this radar right here is outdated. This cluster of thunderstorms is now a little bit closer to the Chicago metro right now, moving a little bit more to the east here, and northern Indiana to southwestern Michigan probably needs to watch this cluster of thunderstorms because what I'm about to show you here might be a little bit on the nasty side this morning. But let's check out some other things like Cape, which there is quite a bit of instability going on out there out ahead of these storms. 3,500, so this will probably intensify a little bit more as well as it continues to move to the east here. But let's check out some other things. Let's check out the mix layer here, and there's actually 3,000 joules per kilogram in the mix layer, so quite a bit of cape up there. Meanwhile, downdraft cape is pretty elevated here. Really, 1,000 plus would be pretty good for some damage winds. Low-level lap rates is on the weaker side, but your mid-level lap rates is on a little on the stronger side of things. So this is a pretty decent cluster of thunderstorms right here, moving into a pretty decent environment here for some severe weather. If you check out some wind shear, yeah, these storms will probably get a little bit more organized as well. And where we do have that 5% area today, it's in a pretty good environment here for some wind shear, which will be favorable for some tornadoes up there as well. So we do have a severe thunderstorm watch in place this morning, and this does include the Chicago metro, so really for parts of northern and northeastern Illinois, and does include a couple counties up in northwestern Indiana. If these storms keep up, we'll probably see another severe thunderstorm watch probably for northern Indiana and southwestern Michigan. So let me show you guys on radar here what it looks like, but actually let me say these things. So a couple tornadoes are possible, lime-sized hail is also possible, but scattered wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour is likely. Now let's check out the radar. You can see your cluster thunderstorms is moving pretty quickly to the northeast. These will probably turn a little bit more to the east very shortly, but you can see you're heading right towards the Chicago metro here. And the area of focus right now is this area right here, where the radar is recording some pretty impressive winds with this. Now keep in mind, this is a little high up, a little bit up there. But check out these winds though. We're talking about 100-mile-per-hour winds of how far up? About 22, 2100, or wait a minute, let me say this again. 2,200 feet up in the air. And we're getting 100-mile-per-hour winds. And now sometimes these winds can get down to the surface. Not all the time, but it has happened before that some of these winds can get down to the surface. Doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened before. So really, for places, for people that live really south of the downtown area of Chicago, definitely need to watch for these cluster thunderstorms because this definitely looks a little bit on the nasty side of things. I did see 113-mile-per-hour winds, but that was a little higher up. That was more 3,400 feet up in the air. But still, we're at 2,200 feet up in the air, and we're recording winds of 100 miles per hour. And that's to the northwest of Northville as well. Let's see what they got this warning for. 70-mile-per-hour winds. The strongest winds will move into Kendall County. And this is also radar indicated winds, and it's actually moving very fast. Moving east to 65 miles per hour. So this is a pretty fast moving cluster of thunderstorms here. And there's a chance it may intensify as it continues to move to the east, closer to the Chicago metro. So this is definitely a cluster of thunderstorms that needs to be monitored over the next hour or two as well. Definitely need to watch for that cluster. So the Hermo's not really picking much on that cluster there. It actually shows a weakening before it gets there, but these balls have been pretty terrible over the last several days. So take this reflectivity as a grain of salt. But it does show some of the remains continuing to move to the northeast. But it does form a new line of storms out ahead of that. So kind of has it, kind of doesn't. But you can see here, there is a little cluster of thunderstorms that do form really anywhere up from western Michigan down into parts of central Indiana. But again, take this as a grain of salt. And some of these storms may produce some damage to wind gusts. Now, this is not the main round here. This is the main round right here. You got a pretty good cluster of thunderstorms that do form really anywhere from upper Michigan all the way down through parts of southern and eastern Wisconsin into northern Illinois, and these will continue to move to the southeast as well. But I'm a little bit skeptical about that morning wave, though. If that high thin cloud cover kind of covers up most of northern Illinois throughout most of the day, they might get lucky with this one here, and they may not have to experience that much of severe weather with this second round than the first round. So that's going to be so to watch here as well. But time will tell at that point later today. But we'll see about that if everything goes. So there goes that cluster of thunderstorms as we move to Thursday, which we do have that marginal risk. It's not really that impressive here. Some isolated cells here. You got a decent cluster back into Kansas here as well. So the severe alert there will likely stay a little bit on the lower end side for Thursday as well. And that's how far out it could go. I want to check out the environment to how it's done the best, but it was underdone with the Cape yesterday. Actually, all models were underdone with the Cape, but it's still done good as well. Better than the rest, really. But you can see here, lots of instability out there. Really widespread 5,000 plus joules per kilogram. Really across southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. But this may depend on if those high thin clouds from the first wave this morning could kind of keep the numbers lower, which I think that's going to be the case here. I think these numbers are going to be a little bit lower than what the models are showing from the first wave. So take this as a grain of salt here as well. But there's going to be a decent amount of instability out there. But really the main area that everybody's kind of focusing on is really up here in Wisconsin. So I'll show you guys that right now. Haven't really looked too much into this morning. So this is going to be the first time for me to look into these soundings as well. And yeah, there is a decent amount of wind shear. Plus, you do have pretty strong mid-level lap rate, so that's going to be favorable for that large hail front. Some of these hailstones could be very large as well. Plus, there's a lot of instability, so this is a pretty good sounding for large hail. Uh, uh, Damage winds looks to be pretty good as well. Strong low lap rates, plus that dandruff cape is pretty high, so that can lead to a significant damage wind setup. And then there is a decent amount of wind shear as well in place. So this is favorable for all hazards. Definitely a little bit of an elevated tornado threat. You can see here the photograph is a little bit small, but still can produce some isolated tornadoes out there. I think that's definitely a possibility with some of these storms that can produce some isolated tornadoes. So really all hazards are possible for anybody who lives in southern and parts of eastern Wisconsin. Has that threat for very large hail, damage winds. Some of them could be significant, and maybe some isolated tornadoes. So definitely a pretty decent setup here for those hazards as well. And then when we continue on into Thursday, looks like the high-risk NAM's a little bit further up north here than what the HERMAL had to say. But there's still a lot of instability to work with up there as well. Still 5,000 to 5,500. Still a lot of instability to work with as well. And this is the marginal risk day, which I do expect a slight risk probably somewhere. Um, Probably one limiting factor that I see on here is the wind shear, which will likely be a limiting factor for Friday's thread as well. 24 knots isn't too bad. I mean, you could get some, at least some organized cells. It won't be widespread or anything, but any of those organized cells can produce some damage to winds. In fact, there is some high downdraft cape numbers. Plus, there is some strong low-level lap rates as well. There's also a lot of instability to work with. There's even some upper-level wind dynamics adding on to this, so maybe you won't need too much wind shear to get some good thunderstorms going, especially with those upper-level winds. May actually help some of those severe storms a little bit. So we definitely need to watch up there as well. And you see that this amount of instability does expand down near to the Ozarks as well. And I think areas for up in the northeast, I think these will be more isolated variety. Severe wind gusts as well. You can see here, if you would go out further out west, pretty much a similar scenario here, but there is some stronger mid-level lap rates that could lead to a large hail threat, as well. Also, the damage to wind threat is there. Otherwise, the tornado threat will be very low, and there won't be that many organized cells out there. So probably a marginal slight risk at best on these days here. And the tornado threat will likely stay pretty low for some of these areas as well. And then you move on to Friday here. You can see here, kind of going off the screen there, good amount of instability up across parts of Northern Virginia, or West Virginia, I should say. So we'll get a sounding up there as well. And then we'll switch over to the NAM model to take a little bit more detail for Friday. As you can see here, not too bad. Then again, the wind shears will be on the weaker side, and that's going to be a limiting factor. That's going to limit these organized cells. Um, Instability looks pretty good. Downdraft cape is 1400. Low lap rates is also pretty good as well. So pretty much of a damage to wind sounding, which I think it's going to be the main threat. There could be some small hail, given the fact there is strong low lap rates out there. So some of these sorts can produce some small hail as well. But really, the primary threat is really going to be the damage winds. Switching over to the NAM, we'll actually have the view across the northeast as well. So here's Thursday here, and we do have that March risk that does expand across parts of the northeast. So let's actually check that out as well. So this is for southwestern New York. We're going to try to get through these quickly here. Not too bad of a sounding here. There's actually a little bit more wind shear to work with, so there might be a chance for some more organized cells up there further up north. There could be a low wind tornado threat as well. The holograph is pretty small though. Quite a bit of instability though, and low volare rates is also there. Downdraft Cape's not really there, but it's pretty close to 800, so I'll let that slide by. So we're at the primary threat in this sounding here will probably be damaged winds and maybe a very isolated spin up tornado as well. Maybe a chance for some small hail as well. And that's Thursday. And let's move on to Friday here. Shows a little bit of a different story than the high res NAM, but I'm interested to see what the 12Z model runs will show later on today. And it does show some of your greater instability, more focus across parts of the lower Ohio Valley. So we'll check out that area as well. We'll check out southwestern Indiana, see what we got down here. But then again, wind shear will be a limiting factor. Yeah, the wind shear is actually pretty bad. So bad it's actually in the negatives. So that's pretty rough. So you're not really going to get much of any organized cells. There will be thunderstorms out there, at least along the cold front, because there will at least be some lift out there for those storms. But they're going to have a hard time organizing, so the severe weather threat will be staying pretty low. So I think marginal risk will be best by looking at the sounding here. 6,700 Cape though, quite a bit of instability. Plus your low evaporates will be on the strong side too. 9 degrees Celsius, that's actually pretty high. If we have more wind shear to work with, you could be talking about another significant event down here. But in that case, wind shear is expected to stay on the much weaker side of things as well. We'll go a little further to the northeast. We'll go into west central Pennsylvania as well. And I do expect these areas up here to have a little bit more wind shear to work with too. And that looks to be the case here, which that could lead to a little bit more organized cells as well. If there's going to be a slight risk, it's probably going to be up in the northeast where there is going to be a little bit more wind shear to work with. I think the tornado threat will stay very low, but I think the main threat will be damaged winds, maybe some small hail, and an isolated tornado threat. And you can see there's ceasefire Cape out there. Downdraft Cape on the lower end side, but you do have local rates to support the damage and wind threat. So I think we can see some scattered severe wind gusts up there, but I don't think they will be significant though. Again, the factor is going to be that lack of wind shear, but it is going to be something to watch for now. And then that cold front starts to move further south, and the severe weather threat might be pretty low when it gets that far south. I think the wind shear might be a little bit on the weaker side things. So that's the severe weather side of things done. So let's move on to the tropics. So we got Tropical Storm Fred here, and this is expected to make landfall in the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And I also do expect this to weaken into a tropical depression. Now, it really depends on the landscape here, because parts of the eastern side of a Dominican Republic is just flat land, so it may not uh, die down that much. But if it does go for the mountains, which is a little bit more inland, which that where it might be going, it could really mess up the system here. It may have to start all over again to try to redevelop, which I believe that's what the GFS actually shows. It completely messes this thing up, which is some good news there. That's something we actually would want here. It's those mountains to shred this storm apart. But I think it's still going to keep on going afterwards. But I think it'll have to depend on how long it will take to get organized. If it gets organized fairly quickly here, that may lead to some concerns in the Eastern Gulf here as well. Plus, you do have Invest 95L back here as well, with a low and well medium 40% chance, which we do expect those chances to increase because there is a pretty good environment out ahead of this thing. No wind shear, not much in the way of dry air, so this thing here will be good to go for intensification. So we could see another tropical system to develop. Whenever Fred makes landfall, there's going to be probably going to be another tropical system to watch, which I actually do not know what name is next on the list. But I think we're going to see another system develop right behind Fred here very soon. So let's check out Tropical Storm Fred. So you can see here's infrared satellite imagery. And there's been some concerns here. A lot of your convection's up here, but some people have been finding the low-level circulation somewhere up here, though, kind of misplaced with maybe in the mid-level circulation, something like that. But it really depends on, at this point, which part of the island it's going to go for you. If it's going to go more to the eastern side where there's not as much mountains, it might be a stronger system. But if it does go through those mountains, it's going to be much weaker and it may shred the storm completely apart. We're glad to see what's going to happen later today with the system here. We'll probably find out what happens later tonight into tomorrow morning. We'll probably see what happens with the system here. Here's the National Hurricane Center's outlook here, and you can see here they do expect this to die down into a tropical depression here when it makes landfall, and probably when it gets to Haiti, and they do expect this to re-intensify back into a tropical storm, which unfortunately it looks like it may miss Cuba, but there is still that chance that it might go a little bit further south and may continue to go on land. We'll see. But you can see where this cone does go. It actually goes into the Eastern Pacific, or actually the Eastern Gulf of Mexico, I should say, not the Eastern Pacific, where those waters have not been touched for over a month, tropical wise. I mean, these waters are very warm. There's a lot of ocean heat content to work with. So if this tropical system goes over into that area, it may intensify fairly quickly, but we'll see what happens when it goes for Dominican Republic first and see how it gets organized before we get to that point, though. Let's check out the tracks from the hurricane models, and most of them do agree on that it's probably going to just skim just off the northeast coast of Cuba. Just skim it, which probably won't do much of anything to the system. But really afterwards, most of the models do keep it into the Eastern Pacific here, or Eastern Gulf of Mexico. I said that again. Um, the Eastern Gulf of Mexico here, and that's going to be a little bit of concerning here, where again, those waters are very warm, a lot of ocean heat content as well. Which we'll check out the GFS model to see what it shows with dry air and wind shear as well. Here's the intensity guidance here, and you can see here as it gets into the Eastern Gulf of Mexico, it does strengthen a little bit. And there's only two models that take it to a low end category 1. I think there is a low end chance it could become a category 1 hurricane, but the majority does keep it into a tropical storm, which probably is a safe bet at this point. But again, it will have to depend on when of how it goes through Dominican Republic and Haiti later today. But you can see here this main circulation is just about to go over land right now. It's gonna go probably something maybe like this here, probably on this track here, which some of its mountains are kind of in this region here. So that's definitely something we need to keep an eye on as well. So let's check out the GFS model here. So Tropical Storm Fred is right here. You're going to see this continue to move to the northeast here. You can see there whenever it goes through Dominican Republic, Haiti, so much remains is still there, but does have a hard time trying to get organized. And plus, there's not that much wind shear to work with to really mess up the system anymore. Maybe when it gets into parts of Florida, it might mess this thing up a little bit, but it does show it trying to intensify before it makes landfall as well. And then you see, bam, it makes landfall to parts of Florida by 2 o'clock in the morning on August 17th, which is still 6 days away, so still got a little ways to go there. Plus, you're also going to see on this map here, and that's Invest 95L, which is somewhere back here. I think it's like right in here, which the GFS model doesn't really show this intensifying that much, which is pretty confusing though. But I think your tropical wave is right here at this point. And you kind of see it there. It's kind of faded away at that point. So the GFS is not that really that much impressed with Invest 95L. If we check out the precipitable water numbers, you can see here, here's Tropical Storm Fred right here. Here's your tropical wave. I believe it's right there. As well, you can see here as I kind of continue on here, here's your tropical wave right here, or Invest 95L. Here's Tropical Storm Fred, or its remains. Still going on out there. You see when it gets into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, it does start to intensify, gets a little bit more organized, and you do see here there's not that much dry air out ahead of that thing of Tropical Storm Fred or even Invest 95L. Not much dry air to work with these systems here. Although there is a little bit of wind shear, at least for Tropical Storm Fred, But really for Invest 95L, there's not much of any wind shear out ahead of this thing. So really Invest 95L is good to go for intensification, which is what we're going to look at right now on the hurricane models on Invest 95L, which right now doesn't have much of the way of convection this morning. But only one hurricane models out there for the tracks right now at 12Z. But we'll be able to look into the intensity guidance, and you can see here all four models do bring this into a tropical storm, and three of those actually bring it to a hurricane. But we do not have all models in place. I think we'll get all the models on the next update. Will be like 3 or 4 o'clock later today. So we'll be interested to see what those models will show. But we do have the GFS ensembles, and this is what it's got here. And it does have maybe a couple models that do show it intensifying it to something, but the majority does show it dying off. But we'll see what happens with the system here over the next couple of days, but it is something to watch for now. But anyways, guys, this is all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you already do like my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, in the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.